What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles with a triple bovine theme team or cow-related theme team in the Open Great League with the newly released Aqua Breed Paldean Taurus, Miltank and Bouffalant. With that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What animal-related theme team that you've not yet seen before would you like to see me showcase on the channel in the future? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Heading into the first battle, leading Taurus into Blastoise, so this is a great matchup for us. Of course, if the opponent is running Skull Bash, then it's going to be slightly tricky for us, but the opponent doesn't even farm up to it. Clearly, on Hydro Cannon and Ice Beam, they go for Hydro Cannon. That is resisted damage. Of course, we are also resisting the rollout damage. We go for Trailblaze, boosting our attack, dealing big damage. And at this point, I realize they're staying in. They are probably weak to Taurus in the back, so I'm just going to shield. That would not KO, but now I can get the farm down, come out with a ton of loaded energy, and the opponent comes in with a Shadow Typhlosion. I'm at back-to-back charge moves here, but I'm actually going to go for one extra double kick, fire off the charge move, assuming the opponent might think I would throw straight away. And if the opponent commits to a full Incinerate farm down, Taurus able to make a third Aqua Tail here. And Aqua Tail gets the KO up against Shadow Typhlosion. We get the double kick farm down, but the opponent just concedes the match there. So, GG's to the opponent there. Obviously, you can see Taurus absolutely shutting down that team. Into next battle, we see a great lead. The opponent's going to say swap into Quagsire. And do they know about the Trailblaze coverage? I'm going to no-shield the charge move here as the opponent does go for an Aqua Tail. And the opponent probably on Aqua Tail and Stone Edge, both resisted. We go for Trailblaze, we get the one-shot, we boost up our attack. And again, Taurus absolutely shutting down an entire team as they come in with a Talonflame. I fire off the Aqua Jet. I'm now going to swap into Miltank, of course. I can hit for double super effective damage with these rollouts. They have been nerfed this season, so not quite as much damage as it used to be. But either way, forcing the opponent to go for a Brave Bird and then dip into their Dunsparce. We go for Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is going to connect. You can see I am running double nukes, I guess, on the Miltank. They're not really nukes. Ice Beam and Thunderbolt don't really hit that hard from a bulky Pokemon like a Miltank, but either way, not running Body Slam there. I do kind of like the coverage that they have, so we're going to come in with the Taurus, and I'm actually just going to shield here, commit to a full double kick farm down. If the opponent swaps back into Talonflame, it doesn't matter. We can go for one double kick, fire off the Aqua Tail here. Sorry, not Aqua Tail, Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet is going to grab the final shield from the opponent, and Aqua Jet number 2 should be enough damage to take out the Talonflame. One more double kick takes out the Dunsparce, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there. Into next battle, we see a Claydol in the lead. So, this is actually slightly awkward for us just because they are going to resist the double kick damage. I assume they're probably going to shield the first charge move as they can go for a debuff with a Rock Tomb. But no, they actually no-shield that. And that's okay with me. At this point, I'm going to shield. They're probably going to bait with a Rock Tomb. Nope, they actually go for the Scorching Sands as well. So, both things I've said they're probably going to do, they have not done so far. We're going to go for an Aqua Jet there, dealing big damage, then swapping into Miltank. And I'm just going to no-shield here. The opponent is going to fire off a charge move. They do finally go for a Rock Tomb. I'm going to overfarm here, throw on the CMP tie, but we actually lose CMP. I don't use Miltank very often. It's a very bulky Pokemon. Honestly, I'm not used to losing CMP ties, and it turns out this is actually just an IV-dependent CMP tie there, so possibly could have won that if the opponent had better IVs, but either way, they come back in with the Claydol. We can now fire off another Ice Beam. Ice Beam is going to be shielded by the opponent, and I'm going to come in with my Bouffalant. Going to no-shield the first charge move. The opponent does go for a Scorching Sands once again. I'm committing to a huge Mudshot farm down, and at this point, I'm definitely going to use my shield here. The opponent does finally go for Rock Tomb, debuffing my attack there. I am full sending the Skull Bash. Skull Bash is going to be grabbing the final shield from the opponent. We swap back into Taurus. I'm able to make it to the Aqua Jet, but Aqua Jet does not get the KO, and the opponent gets the perfect farm down, living with 1 HP and a dream, coming out with the Aura Wheel. Aura Wheel takes out the Bouffalant, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into next battle, we see Feraligatr in the lead. So we are going to completely wall the charge moves from this Pokemon. However, Taurus is not the bulkiest Pokemon ever, so a Hydro Cannon is going to do about half our health there. A second charge move will force a shield, but we can go for Trailblaze. Trailblaze boosting up our attack. And at this point, I'm thinking, you know what? I might as well just stay in, fire off a boosted Aqua Jet here. Aqua Jet is going to do big damage, and now I'm going to swap into my Bouffalant. I'm going to no-shield the first charge move here. The opponent is going to go for the overheat there, dealing huge damage. I did consider shielding once and then going for a full Mudshot farm down, but instead we fire off the Stomp there, getting the KO as the opponent comes in with another Claydol. Bouffalant just barely able to reach a Stomp. Stomp really not going to do too much damage here, but that's okay. It's okay chip damage, and it hopefully puts them into Ice Beam range for later on in the battle. We're going to come in with the Miltank. I'm going to shield up the first charge move as the opponent goes for a Rock Tomb, debuffing our attack. I'm going to swap, catch the Hydro Cannon onto my Tauros as the opponent does throw immediately. We can now come back in with the Miltank. Honestly, I don't expect the opponent to shield here, so I'm not going to overfarm as much as possible. We go for Thunderbolt. The opponent does actually use a shield there. So at this point, I'm going to also shield as a Hydro Cannon, going to do quite a lot of damage in this matchup. I'm not going to overfarm as much as possible. Instead, go for Thunderbolt, get the KO there, and the opponent comes back in with their Claydol. Now, I'm hoping Ice Beam will be enough damage to get the KO, but Miltank, very bulky, and it actually doesn't get the KO there. And of course, they are resisting the rollout damage as well. Scorching Sands gets us deep into the red health range, but I'm just barely able to get that rollout farm down. I did actually come out with a charge move there, so just in case we didn't get the farm down, I could have gone for a charge move anyways, but GG's to opponent there into next battle. We see a Dunsparce in the lead, so a great lead matchup for me. The opponent is going to fire off a charge move straight away, assuming going to be a Drill Run here. Drill Run does get us into the yellow health range, which is okay. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Aqua Jets here. First Aqua Jet is going to be shielded by the opponent before they swap into a Togetic, so we're going to come in with the Miltank. Of course, I can no-shield this. The opponent going for an Ancient Power there, fishing for the boost, not getting the boost. We're going to go straight for a Thunderbolt, dealing big damage there. And of course, now I can commit to a full farm down. The opponent doesn't even throw the next charge move, probably committing to a Dazzling Gleam or something and not quite reaching it. But either way, they come in with the Claydol. They've seen Thunderbolt. We go for Ice Beam. It connects. It does big damage. And at this point, this game is probably already over. Ice Beam grabs the final shield. I'm going to swap into my Bouffalant. Just use it as a damage sponge, essentially. As the opponent fires off a charge move, they go for their own Ice Beam there, dealing respectable damage. I'm going to go for a Stomp on the CMP tie here. Stomp gets the KO from that range to come back in with the Dunsparce. And I'm just going to save my shields here for my Tauros, of course. This game is well and truly wrapped up. We can come in with the Tauros, go straight for the Aqua Jet, and from this range, Aqua Jet takes out the Dunsparce, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. See Tauros into a Charger Bug. So, obviously not ideal for me. Gonna say swap into my Miltank. And we are met with a Shadow Kanto Marowak. We're going straight for Ice Beam here. Ice Beam is going to be shielded by the opponent. And unfortunately, because I'm running Rollout as the fast move, even if I do land an Ice Beam, I won't quite put them into farm down range as I just have very little fast move pressure whatsoever. But we go for a second Ice Beam, dealing big damage. But the opponent can now commit to a full Mud Slap farm down. Unfortunately as well, I believe they are one away from back-to-back charge moves, and unfortunately, I don't think 2 double kicks will be enough damage to get the KO here. So Bone Club, number 1, gets us low, and they do unfortunately just barely reach a second Bone Club before I can farm them down. I'm going to bank the energy swap into my Bouffalant, and the opponent comes back in with the Charger Bug. Now I'm committing to the Skull Bash, and I'm able to reach it on the CMP tie. The opponent does not respect the damage, but it barely doesn't get the KO there. They live with a few HP. One more Mud Shot would get the KO, but they're at back-to-back charge moves, so unfortunately, forced to use a shield here. I have buffed up my defense, but a Hydro Cannon is still going to get the KO from this range. So what I'm going to do now is shield this up here, and I will farm up to the Skull Bash, but I'm actually going to fire off a Stomp here. Stomp is not going to do much damage, so I'm hoping to grab the final shield. I grab the final shield, I swap into my Tauros, and actually we had a little bit more HP than I realized. Maybe I could have reached a Trailblaze there, but instead we come back in with the Bouffalant, and we end up losing CMP here. Up against for Alligator, Hydro Cannon takes out the Bouffalant, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's top on there into next battle. We see a Whiscash in the lead, so this is a great matchup for us. Of course, Trailblaze is going to hit for double super effective damage. I'm going to overfarm here. The opponent does throw on good timing after 7 Mud Shots. They go for a Mud Bomb, which is neutral damage. You can see a second Mud Bomb will pretty much take us out here. But we go for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to be shielded by the Whiscash. Fine with me. I could have thrown straight away on 1 CMP, but instead I go for the extra double kick, and now I can overfarm in this matchup. We fire off another Trailblaze from this range. Trailblaze definitely going to take out the Whiscash, and they come in with a Talonflame as well. So we go for 3 double kicks, throwing on good timing, go for the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet grabs the final shield from the opponent. I'm not quite going to reach another charge move, so we swap out, we bank the energy, we come in with our Miltank, and the opponent goes for a Fly. So Fly is fine with me. The opponent will just barely outpace me to the next charge move, however, so I'm going to shield this as they go for another Fly. I'm going to go for 1 rollout, fire off the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt will be enough damage to get the KO here, and the opponent's going to have a more Pekko in the back. So we go for 3 rollouts, fire off the Ice Beam as soon as we get there. Ice Beam does big damage. I'm now swapping into Bouffalon, forcing the opponent to throw their energy straight away. The opponent goes for the Aura Will, boosting up their attack there, and they do just barely reach another charge move, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. They can go for Psychic Fangs, taking out the Bouffalon. We can come back in with the Miltank, 1 more rollout, takes out more Pekko, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into next battle, sit a Claydol in the lead. So again, gonna stay in this matchup initially. Slightly awkward for us, especially if they do shield the Aqua Jet. Last time they actually didn't, so it was kind of okay for us. But either way, we go for the Aqua Jet, and the opponent is gonna no shield once again, so that's fine with me. At this point, I am going to shield this, and the opponent does bait with a Rock Tomb. So a bit unfortunate there, but that's okay. I'm now gonna go for a Trailblaze. They've debuffed my attack, so I'm gonna boost it again. Trailblaze is gonna be shielded by the opponent before swapping into an Ariados. So this one, I bank a charge move. I then swap into my Miltank here, and unfortunately, because I don't have Body Slam, I am not very spammy here. So what we're going to do is fire off the Thunderbolt as soon as we get there. We can just barely get there before the opponent can debuff my attack by a second stage. At this point, I'm not going to shield the Miltank at all. The opponent goes for a second lunge there. The opponent will have to throw a charge move to take us out, but they do outpace us because of our lack of Body Slam. But either way, lunge gets the KO. I'm going to come in with the Bouffalon, go for that Mudshot farm down, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent's going to come in with a Talonflame, so I'm just going to fully commit to a Skull Bash here. And Skull Bash, if it does connect, it's going to do big damage. The opponent does use a shield, so we're going to swap Snipe with the Tauros, going straight for the Aqua Jet. But Aqua Jet doesn't get the KO, and it doesn't really put them into farm down range either, and that is super unfortunate. At this point, we come in with the Bouffalon. I'm forced to shield a Rock Tomb. I need to come out with back-to-back charge moves here, but I'm not able to get there in time, and unfortunately, from this range, whatever they throw, Rock Tomb will be enough damage to take out the Bouffalon, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up over there, into next battle, you see Galissapod in the lead, so not that bad of a matchup, assuming they're on Exeter and Aqua Jet. If they do have Aerial-Ace, of course, that's going to be a bad matchup for the Tauros, but I swap out anyways into my Miltank, and we bait out Credilli. Of course, we've already seen us losing CMP up against Credilli, so at this point in time, I didn't realize it was IV dependent, so I'm always going to play one before the opponent does reach another charge move to avoid any CMP ties if possible. So we're able to take out Credilli there. They come back in with Galissapod. They've seen Ice Beam. Do they respect the Thunderbolt? They do actually respect the charge move damage, but that's okay. I'm going to no-shield my Miltank, and the opponent is going to go straight for Aqua Jet, taking out the Miltank. That's fine with me. I'm going to come in with my Bouffalon just because I can double resist the Shadow Claw damage, tank the first charge move, then possibly eventually swap into my Tauros. But actually, we're going to shield up the next charge move as the opponent goes straight for Aqua Jet number 3. We are now committing to the Skull Bash, and the opponent actually swaps. They make a catch onto Feraligatr. So Skull Bash is going to one-shot the Shallow Feraligatr. We boost up our defense as well. At this point, I might be able to live this, but I'm going to shield anyways, play it safe. We've only seen Aqua Jet so far, so not clear if they are running Aerial-Ace or not. But either way, I should be able to live a single Aerial-Ace on the Tauros. So of course, all shields are now down. The opponent goes for an Aqua Jet, so clearly having Exeter as a secondary charge move, there's nothing they can do, so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there, into next battle, great lead matchup for me, but the opponent safe swaps into Cresselia. Now, I don't have a great response. All I'm hoping for is that the opponent does not debuff my attack with a Moonblast, and they do exactly that. And now, unfortunately, I feel like this is now an impossible matchup for me to flip or maintain alignment with without going down like by 2 shields, which is definitely not something that I want to do. So either way, gonna no-shield the next charge move here. The opponent goes for Grass Knot, and as well, not having access to Body Slam here is going to hinder my pacing, which means, unfortunately, I just won't be able to take out this Cresselia. So this is why I'm thinking, well, Bouffalant's still got double super effective mud shots up against the Magcargo. It's not the worst case scenario, but it just depends what their third Pokemon is. So we're going to come in with the Bouffalant. I'm going to shield the first Charge Move here. I'm then going to massively overfarm, farming up to well over back-to-back stomps there, firing off the first stomp. Stomp from this range will get the KO, and we take out Cresselia. Bouffalant does have access to Earthquake, so I might be able to grab a shield up against the Magcargo. We go for Skull Bash. Skull Bash is going to be shielded by the opponent. I should be able to tank this. I did consider swapping out and catching the move, as everything is resisted on the Tauros, but of course I didn't want to debuff my attack there, and unfortunately they've got Superior in the back, and there's just nothing we can do here. So I really needed to fight for switch advantage. However, of course, them getting the debuff from that Moonblast on the first attempt just really did not help me out. So we're going to go for a slightly boosted Aqua Jet here. Aqua Jet is going to connect. Nope, never mind. It's going to be shielded. It wouldn't do that much damage anyways. And unfortunately, this is going to be game over. Aerial Ace takes us out there. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can. We do reach a stomp, but the opponent catches it onto Magcargo. At this point, it doesn't really matter. I reach a last second stomp, but this still actually won't even get the KO as it is resisted damage. So the opponent able to incinerate, farm down the Bouffalant. And unfortunately, despite the really good lead there, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there. Into next battle, we see a Shadow Whiscash in the lead. So again, great lead matchup for me. Again, I'm not going to throw it immediately. I want to throw it on good timing. The opponent is actually going to go for a Scald here. Scald does not debuff my attack. Either way, it doesn't really make a difference here as we go for Trailblaze, get the one shot, boost up our attack, and the opponent comes in with a Clodsire. So we're boosted. We're now going for the Aqua Jet, and a boosted Aqua Jet does huge damage to the Clodsire. Really not sure why they're not shielding, but either way, we can go for another Aqua Jet here. Aqua Jet is going to be shielded by the opponent. They do get a huge farm down, but that's fine with me. I'm going to come in with my Miltank here. Just sponge the damage. They go for a Stone Age the first time around. I will shield up the next Charge Move here just because I want to preserve some health just in case they've got something like a Flying type in the back. I'm now going to swap into Bouffalant. They've only revealed Stone Edge so far, so I'm going to no shield again. The opponent does finally full send the Earthquake, but that's okay. We can tank that very comfortably. They come in with the Dunsparce. I'm going straight for the Skull Bash here. Skull Bash gonna be no shielded by the Dunsparce, and this is absolutely game over. I can shield up the Charge Move. The opponent fires off the Drill Run. I can now go straight for a Stomp. Actually, I'm gonna overfarm here. Doesn't really make a difference here. Stomp is going to be shielded by the opponent. We can swap back into Miltank, losing CMP, but it doesn't matter. Whatever they throw, it will not be enough damage to take out the Miltank, but a Thunderbolt from this range up against Dunsparce gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we see a Galarian Corsola in the lead. So, of course, I've got two normal types in the back. I'm going to take swap into my Bouffalant here, expecting the opponent to eventually swap out. And honestly, really hoping the opponent does swap out here because I've got nothing to hit this Corsola for at all. And the opponent does. They go for a chip with the Power Gem before swapping into Wigglytuff. We full send the Skull Bash, dealing huge damage and boosting up my defense, allow me to reach a Stomp as well, which is nice. Stomp is going to be shielded by the opponent. At this point, I don't really want to come in with the Tauros as obviously going to take super effective damage from the charms. We come in with the Miltank. This is not enough energy for an Icy Wind, which is great for me. Swift doesn't do too much damage. They don't debuff my attack, and they also come back in with the Corsola, which is definitely fine with me. I go straight for the Ice Beam here, and I'm realizing Miltank's probably good up against whatever they've got in the back, so I'm actually going to shield this. Power Gem wouldn't do too much damage, but I was correct in that assumption as they've got a Mandibuzz in the back. So, of course, roll out hitting for super effective damage. Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, also going to hit for super effective damage. And if you didn't know, Ice Beam and Thunderbolt are just direct clones of each other, just different typings. The same actually goes for Flamethrower as well. They're like a sort of trio of moves that are the same energy, same damage and everything, just different typings. I'm now going to come in with the Tauros. I can shield this up, and then I can very comfortably outpace them to back-to-back charge moves here. We're going to overfarm, waiting for the opponent to swap back into the Corsola. We can now go straight for the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet doesn't quite get the KO, but we get the farm down. And we can go for one more double kick, fire off the Aqua Jet again, and from this range, Aqua Jet takes out the Mandibuzz, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG top on there. Into the next battle, we see Tauros into a Drapion. So, a good matchup for me, of course. We're going to resist the typical charge moves of Crunch and Aqua Tail. If they are on Sludge Bomb, that would hit for neutral damage, and it would do quite a lot of damage as well. The opponent fires off a Crunch, then they swap into Azumarill. Now, of course, we are a fighting type, but I've got access to Trailblaze. I'm also resisting the bubble damage. I could have swapped into my Miltank here, and I also could have tanked an Ice Beam, but I figured I'm already boosted by one stage. I kind of want to see what Tauros can do in this matchup. So, we're going for a boosted Trailblaze. Trailblaze gets the KO there. We get the attack boost, of course, again, so we are now double boosted, but they come in with a Primate, and suddenly, things are not looking too good for me. We go for the Aqua Jet. I desperately need to reach another Aqua Jet, and I don't get there in time, and now this is just game over. I come in with the Bouffalante, expecting the opponent to bait, but no, they full send the close combat, and there's just nothing we can do anymore. We've, of course, got Miltank, which doesn't have Body Slam either, so I can't bait them. The opponent fires off the Aqua Tail, which is okay with me, I guess. I much prefer that over just going for crunches. But either way, they are very spammy. They go for another Aqua Tail. I found up to 100 energy, but unfortunately, even doing so, Ice Beam doesn't get the KO, and it doesn't put them into farm down range either. At this point, I kind of forced the shield, otherwise they just come in with the Primate and farm me down. But now, of course, they can just safely shield up a single charge move, reach a close combat before I do reach another move here, and of course, close combat gonna be massive overkill, but it takes out the Miltank, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we see a Shadow Typhlosion in the lead. So, sort of a good matchup for me, of course. These Incinerates are still kind of chunky. I do need to respect the damage from a Thunder Punch. I'm going to go for 3 double kicks, fire off the Aqua Jet, and once again, I don't expect the opponent to throw straight away. So, instead, what we're going to do is go for 1 double kick, fire off the Aqua Jet, and I expect, again, the opponent to go for an extra Incinerate. So, once we grab the final shield, we go for 1 more double kick. We then swap into Miltank, expecting to catch a Thunder Punch here. The opponent does go for Thunder Punch. That actually does quite a lot of damage. At this point, it could be a Blast Burn, so I'm actually going to shield this. The opponent does full send the Blast Burn, and they swap into a Venusaur. So at this point, of course, we've got Ice Beam for coverage. We're throwing it after 3 rollouts. Ice Beam does big damage. It doesn't quite put them into range where we can mud shot farm them down with the Bouffalante, so Frenzy Plant gets the KO here. I don't know who wins CMP in this matchup either, so I'm going to play it safe. Just go straight for the Stomp here. Worst case scenario would be to throw on CMP and lose CMP. I'd honestly probably rather just go for a full Mudshot farm down. But either way, their final Pokemon going to be for Alligator. Bouffalante is tanky enough to sponge a single Hydro Cannon. And I expect the opponent probably going to try and swap and catch a move. We actually didn't even reach the Skull Bash yet, so that's fine with me. We can now full send the Skull Bash. We've seen this already. But Skull Bash, 1 shots for Alligator. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG top home there. Into the next battle, see Superior in the leads, of course. Not great for me. Gonna say swap into my Miltank, and we're met with a Shadow Alolan Sandslash. So, obviously, since they're on Shadow Claw, not that bad for me at all, as I'm double resisting it. Ice Punch, well, 2 Ice Punches won't quite take us out here. Duron gonna do slightly more damage. Actually, I'm not sure if that is still the case. It used to be the case, but of course, Ice Punch did get buffed a few seasons ago, so I don't know if that is still the case. But either way, the opponent does go for the Duron there. That did look slightly more damage than the Ice Punch, but I could be wrong. So, feel free to correct me in the comment section down below. But at this point, I realize I can shield once and then commit to the rollout farm down. Not only that, I'll come out with an Ice Beam loaded. So once again, hopefully, since they've seen the Thunderbolt, they don't expect an Ice Beam. So we're going straight for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam does connect. It actually doesn't do that much damage up against Superior, but either way, that's okay. We're going to come in with the Bouffalante, kind of force the no-shield this. The opponent does go for the Frenzy Plant there. We're now going to overfarm. We're going to throw a Stomp just before the opponent reaches an Aerial Ace, and Stomp is actually just not quite enough damage to get the KO from that range. We've got to hope that Tauros can beat whatever's in the back, and unfortunately, it's going to be more Peko here. So honestly, my win condition is probably no shielding the first move. The opponent does go for a Psychic Fangs bait, and I think, honestly, even with that bait there, if they did land it, I probably would have just been fully Thundershock farm down anyways. So unfortunately, not a lot we can do here. The opponent able to outpace me to back-to-back charge moves. Psychic Fangs, number 2, with that debuff to the defense, is enough damage to take us out, and we do lose that game. But GG's up and there into the final battle of this video. Awful lead matchup for me. Probably the worst thing we can see with our Tauros completely walled by a Tropius. The opponent's going to come in with a Swampert, and now we are full sending the Skull Bash once again. Skull Bash is going to connect. It does huge damage. And at this point, I can just safely shield up the next charge move and then go for a full Mudshot farm down. We're obviously down a shield now, but they come in with a Clodsire, and again, I am full sending the Skull Bash. Skull Bash is once again not respected. It does huge damage, and now I can go for a stomp, and from this range, stomp should be threatening a shield from the opponent, and it does exactly that. Now, they do get a massive farm down, but it doesn't really matter. Tauros can tank an Earthquake reasonably comfortably here. The opponent is now going to swap back into the Tropius. We can come in with the Miltank, and this game is now over. The reason I didn't say swap into Miltank is because I actually just don't think Buffalon can do much up against the Tropius. It looks like the opponent has now just fully given up. We can go straight for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam is going to be shielded by the opponent, so maybe they actually lagged out of that battle, but either way, it doesn't really matter. It's the same result, so the opponent just concedes the match. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.